All right, so we implemented the update, the find user by ID, find by credentials. Let's now implement the being able to create new users, right? Like for registering. So right now the register mechanism is that we click on register, right, and we enter a register, and then presumably we navigate to the profile page, but that's not working. All right, so let's fix that. Let's look at the controller, what it's currently doing. Let's see, let's go in public, let's go to assignment, views, user, template. So here's register, and register, let's see, what's it doing? Oh, okay, notice that, yeah, all right, so this is still, do we even create a controller for this? Yeah, we don't even have a controller for this, right? So let's implement the controller for this, right? Let's remove that, and when we click on the register, we want to handle this in the controller, right? So we say maybe ng-click equal, let's see, register model, right? Model dot register user, and we want to pass a user object here, and the user object would be from this right here. So we have an ng model here. This would be user dot username, right? And we have this would be a password, and this would be password 2. Okay, and we're going to pass as argument this user. Make sense? All right, so let's create the controller for this. I'm going to copy the login controller and rename it to be the register controller. There it is. Okay, and let's rename these things. So this is the register controller, register controller, right, implemented right here using the user service. So what do we do here? Okay, so we want to listen for that incoming method invocation, right here, register user. So we're going to have an event handler right there, and we're going to take as argument the user. And what should we do? Well, one of the things we should do is to see if that user already exists, right? If that user already exists, we should notify and saying, sorry, that username is taken, right? So let's do that. So it should be something like find user by username, right? And we're going to pass the username, and this is going to say success. So a success will mean that the user exists, right? And so we should not continue. All right. If there's an error, right? If the user does not exist, we're going to get a 404. That user doesn't exist, and so that means that that's good. The user doesn't exist, and we should continue and register the person. Yes, all right. So here we're going to get a user object, and then I'm going to say VM error, something like sorry, that username is taken, right? If there's an error, right, meaning there's that user is not found, right? We can say, we can then navigate. We can actually create the user. We can create the user. We can say user service, right? Create user, and we might want to pass the object the user. So notice this is going to be another method, asynchronous call, right? This is kind of like a synchronous call embedded inside of another asynchronous call. See that? Right? Imagine you had lots of asynchronous calls that depend on each other, right? You would have all these nestings, right? The outer one, then an inner one, then another one. If they're all dependent on each other, since they are asynchronous, but they're dependent on each other, they have to be embedded one inside of the other, right? Because that's the only way we can wait until the outer one completes so that we can continue later on, right? So this is create the user and success, right? We get back the actual user object, right? If it's successful, that means that we were able to create the user and we can continue now to the profile, correct? So it'll be something like this right here, right? We're going to navigate to the profile using the user object that comes back from the server and pass the ID. Make sense? Right? If something went wrong, we're just going to notify and say, for some reason, vm.error, sorry, could not register. That's more or less the what we're going to be implementing. Okay, so I'm going to remove that. Make sense? Everybody still with me? All right. Okay, so let's implement this findUserByUsername first. Let's do that. Right now, we don't have anything like that in our register, in our clients, in our service client, right? User service. Do we have that? Do we even have that? We don't have. We have findUserByCredentials. We have findUserByID. We don't have findUserByUsername. So let's implement that. findUserByUsername, username, and there it is, right? And we'll implement it. It'll be something like. Here's the username, right? That's what the controller is doing, right? Here's the controller. The controller is using this findUserByUsername and passing the username. There it is. I got the username. I'm going to pass it along to the server, right? And it's going to be return $HTTP. It's a read operation, right? So it's a get, and the entity is user. So morning/user. And the query string is that we're going to pass the username equal and then username. Make sense? Right? All right. All right. So so what does that map to the on the server side? So let's see. On the server side, we have this app, and let's see. Actually, notice that we already have this mapped. /API/morning/user is mapped already. See that? We're using it for what? We're using it for this query right here, down here. Actually, we don't need this anymore. So let me remove that. Notice that these two queries right here are very, very similar. These two are very similar. See that? Right, this one has a query of username and password, whereas this one just has username. See that? Right? Notice that they're mapped to the same exact path. Right? Actually, the server can't tell them apart. Right? This one and this one, they're both going to be handled by this one finder here. Right? Because the server ignores the query string. Right? To be able to distinguish these paths. It ignores the query strings, right? It only uses the path to be able to distinguish between one call, one HTTP request, or another HTTP request. So the query string is not used to distinguish between queries. Excuse me. So we're going to have to rewrite findUserByCredential so that it can handle these two cases, right? If I have only the username, then you mean to findUserByUsername, yes? If I have both username and password, you mean to find it by credentials. Make sense? All right, so let's rewrite it. Let's rewrite this so that it has a more generic find user. Okay? And find user, let me put it down here. Find user is going to have request and response. And it's going to parse out both. It's going to parse out both just like over here. And then it's going to ask itself, do I have both? If I have both, I'm going to have this guy handle it, right? Because it knows already how to do that, right? If not, if I only have username, then I'm going to handle it differently. Make sense? Right? So this is going to ask if I have username, right, and I have password, right? Then I know who handles that, right? findUserByCredential handles that. So I'm just going to pass the request and response to the findUserByCredentials. That function will handle it, right? Otherwise, if I only have a username, and then I'm going to pass it to a new function called findUser by username, right? Which we don't have. So request response. Okay, so let's implement find user by username. So find user by username that takes in request and response, right? Is going to be very, very similar to this, right? It's going to retrieve the username from the request, from the query. It's going to look for the user. But it's only going to check for the username. It's not going to check for the password, right? And if it finds it, it's going to respond with the user object, right? If user finds user, otherwise it finds a 404. Make sense? All right. Let's see. All right, let's try it out. Let's restart the server. Let's go back. Let's make sure that we didn't break login. That login still works, right? So let's refresh here. Let's try Bob and Bob. Okay, looks like it's still working. We still are able to log in. Looks like we didn't break login. Let's try register. So if we say Bob and we try to register, and what happened here? Oh, we created the controller, but we never mapped the controller to the template, right? So we need to do that. Let's go to the config. Let's go to the config, and we're going to say, hey, that register right here, let's bind it to this controller, and I believe it's called register controller. Okay, and it's going to be referred to in the template, as model. Okay, let's try it again. Oops, we got an error message. What's this? Console. It says that it can't find the register controller. Oh, we need to load it in the index page, right? Let's do that. In the index page, right here, let's load the controllers. This is register controller. Okay, looks like we're okay. Let's go to network, see what happens. Let's remove that. And let's say Bob. Okay, so it looks like it came back as okay. It found 200, right? In the controller, let's see what the controller did. Let's go to source, and let's look at the register controller. Register controller. Let's put a breakpoint right here. Right, so if I try to register, okay, stops right there, right? Let's see, let's put a breakpoint here and here. Let's say continue. All right, so it comes back here and says vm.error, sorry that username is taken. All right, so it went the right way, right? So it found the user. Actually, here's the user object, there it is, right? But apparently we don't have an alert in the register page, right? So if we go back to the register page, right there, right, we can have here an alert, div class alert, alert danger. So, and we're going to put here a model error, and we're only going to show it. So ng show only if this is truthy, or if there's an error, if there's a message, we're going to display the message right here, and that's going to be danger. It's going to be green, like a success, or maybe an info. There's a blue, right? So let's refresh this, and let's try that. Bob, and Bob. Register, and let's take out the breakpoints. Let's continue. There it is. So sorry, the username is taken. Why is that? Oh, I misspelled it. Sorry. Alert. So Bob. There it is. Sorry, the username is taken. Right. If it's not taken, right, and I go EWQ or whatever, and I register, it gives me an error saying that you're trying to create the user, but that doesn't exist. That method doesn't exist in the servers. We'll create that in the next video.